roads, hitchhiking everywhere. And other people were picking us up, and and we were picking each other up, and so that's how we were getting around, a lot of us back then, seeing the country and stuff like that. And, people just wouldn't even believe that you would do a thing like that, today, because you can see the obvious dangers, but we were happy and full of joy and wanted to travel, so that's what we did. I'm 73. Am I 73 or 4? I usually somewhere in there. And so I was around 20, 21 at the time. And so I'd gone up to visit, with the people, and I was finished with my visit, and it was time now to leave. And so my girlfriend, Diane, whom I'd gone all the way through grade school and high school together with, took me out and put me on the road. And it was about right here. Where's Seattle? Somebody tell me where Seattle is. Here we go. It was right about here. And she put me on the road. Can you hear me? Okay. It's right about here that she put me on the road. And I was headed over here to the Coast Highway and going to make my way down until I ran out of money, which wouldn't take too long because I only had $10. And then I was just going to stop and find a place to live and get a job and work the summer there, which I did, spoiler alert, later on. But you picked me up here, and when she dropped me off, I thought, okay, I knew about Bundy. Nobody knew who he was called back then. He was just somebody who was murdering women. And so, right about then, he'd been around, and people had heard of him. And my father was having a fit, as any good father would. And I said, I just dismissed the whole thing, what are the odds? So, turns out they were better than I thought. But when she dropped me off, I was really glad to catch this ride. He changed vehicles a lot. But the day that he picked me up, he was driving some kind of it was a truck. It was painted green. It was immaculate. It was immaculately taken care of. I thought it was an unmarked forest vehicle because Mount Rainier is right nearby. And it's about over in this area, right in here. And I looked around the truck, I looked at the guy in the truck, and the truck was clean as a whistle. There was nothing in it besides the driver of the truck. He was a nice looking man. He was clean cut. He was soft spoken. And I thought he must be a forest ranger. And so I mentioned that to him. I said, you're a ranger, aren't you? And he didn't say anything. Anyway, so I told him where I was going. And as you can see, the seacoast is nowhere near Mount Rainier. So we're driving along, and he says, I have an errand to run right before we take off and go over to the coast. Do you mind? I said, no, of course not. And I really wasn't paying attention to where we were going very much, but the next time I looked up, there was a big, huge sign on the side of the road that said, Mount Rainier. And I went, uh-oh. This isn't gonna take us anywhere near the coast. And I knew in that instant that I was kidnapped. I knew it with every bone in my body. And I sat there for a while and I went, now, do I have any weapons? No. I didn't have any weapons. I had some weapons in my backpack. But I'd slung my backpack in the back of the open truck. And I was carrying only my bag, which I had bandoliered. And so I thought, well, the only weapon you have right now is that he doesn't know that you know. That was my first weapon. And I knew that I had to keep that secret. I knew that I had to just be the most relaxed, wonderful guest he'd ever had in his truck. But I started looking around for ways to protect myself. And so in doing my inventory, my first weapon was that he didn't know. And that was the only one I started out with. So I began to compliment him on, you know, picking me up and showing me around the forest. I'd been up to Mount Rainier about 7 times. So it wasn't anything like that, that someplace that I hadn't been before. But I was thanking him, you know, for bringing me up and showing me this part of the mountain. And I'm so glad I didn't get to leave the state without seeing it. And all kinds of BS. I was very fortunate to be able to travel a lot when I was younger, and I went on a journey with what's called World Campus Afloat, and it was out of Orange County, California. Some of you may have heard of it, but it allowed students to have a semester at sea. And so I've gone around the world already by the time I finished my 19th year. So it wasn't as though I hadn't had a great deal of experience. For somebody my age, I had a lot of experience. And so the main thing that I had to watch out for in that moment was my right hand. My right hand grew a brain of its own, and it wanted to reach over to the door handle so bad. I don't know if you've ever been out to some place that has great height and your feet kind of get a mind of their own, you know, and they don't want you to go any place closer. And it was like that feeling that you get in your feet when you walk out over a cliff someplace. But that I kept having to consciously mess with my hand. And I thought, well, okay. So up we're going, and I'm talking about Mount Kilimanjaro and the plants and the forests that were there, and the similar plants and some of the very unsimilar things. Even if I got out of the truck, there really wasn't a good way to run. I figured I needed probably 10 steps on him to get away, based on how fast I knew I could go and how scared I was. So that came to mind. That was back there, rumbling around. And also, I was just interested in keeping his mind busy. I pulled out, back then I used to have pretty good fingernails. And I pulled out an emery board from my bag. And I began to do my nails. And I announced to him before I did anything, you know, I'm gonna get in my bag here and trying to do these, I've got a snag and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm talking away. So, and trying to distract him from watching what I'm doing. Because I didn't have any weapons, but when I was finished, I had 10. And I underfiled these suckers till they were surgical. And they were. Because I had decided whatever happened, he was gonna show it. I was gonna leave a mark. Thank you. And so if he got close enough to me for me to take after him with the nails, so much the better. So I had 11 weapons. Also, in my bag, in my backpack, everybody was traveling with backpacks, and my backpack was full of books. I was interested in spirituality. I had books on Baba Ram Das and what's his name? Ginsberg, and some poetry from Ginsberg, and several other spiritual books with me. And then I also had been playing chess. And so I brought along several different chess books and on the trip, because if you, back then in 1974, if you wanted to belong to a chess club, you would probably be the only woman in it. And if you lost, it was brutal. All the things you heard. Oh, well, what can we expect from a girl? You know, how can she do something like this? So, I studied a lot to keep up and ahead of the abuse from the guys in the chess club. I haven't played a lot of chess since this, by the way, but one of the books that I had in my backpack was, do we have any chess players? Anybody play? Okay, good, good people. There's something called sacrificing your pieces off the board. And it's done for strategy and for tactical reasons. It's done for surprise, distraction, many ways to pull that successfully off. And for some reason that came to my mind. So I began to sacrifice myself off the board. What I mean by that is I would say I was in perfect condition at this time. There wasn't a thing the matter with me. So I said, you know, when I slung that thing in the back of your truck, I really did something to my shoulder. And I said, you know, later on when we eventually get out up here someplace, you're probably going to have to come around and help me out of this truck. And I said, and I also turned my my ankle while I was drinking the other night with my girlfriend down at the Cozy Palace on 87th Avenue. And so there was another piece sacrificed off the board. I said, so, you know, you probably will have to come around and help me out of here. I was setting him up to come around to help me out, so that for that moment, in that moment then, I would have the advantage of height. And in any kind of encounter with anybody else you might encounter, height is an advantage. and it can be used in your favor. So, then I had 12 weapons. Suddenly, I had 12 weapons. So, here we go, here we go, up around the turns. It was a low slung day. There weren't a lot of tourists out on the highway. It was summer. There was nothing, it looked like from the bottom that there was nothing to see up Mount Rainier, that it was all socked in. And so there was nobody on the road. So jumping out of the vehicle would leave me with bad terrain and no visible means of anybody. So I ruled that out and was gonna go for I was going to try to overwhelm him when he came around to let me out of the truck. So up we go, and after a while, I guess he got tired of listening to me or something. He pulled in this huge parking lot. It was really big, and there wasn't a soul there. It was on an overlook that day only overlooked big boulders. You couldn't see up the mountain to see the magnificence of the mountain at all. And so I said, well, you're gonna have to come around here because I'm gonna need your help to get out. And he did. That was so encouraging for me, you have no idea. I made Ted Bundy go around the front of his truck and temporarily put himself at risk in a lower position. And my big plan was to fall on him with every ounce that I had and then just try to tear him up as bad as I could so that somebody would know that he had been in some kind of altercation. And if I could somehow get 10 steps on him, I knew that I could probably get away. So he came over and he opened the door, and a couple of things happened around the same time. I'd always been listening to a little voice in the back of my head. I've had one. It's just there. And the little voice goes, just wait. And there I was. And I mean, I was ready. And the other thing that happened was I heard a motor from way off. When I was a little kid and we were in grade school, they test you for different things. They test your hearing and your condition and lots of different things. And when we had our hearing test, they tested me, and then they went and put me back in class, and then they came back and tested me again, and put me back, and then they came back and got me again. Because my hearing was so good. It was really, really good. And in fact, I would grow up to be a musician and composer because I could hear the ear stuff. And so I knew what I was hearing, and I knew it was far away. And the voice was saying, just wait. And I thought to myself, well, how many other good opportunities are you going to have any effect here at all? And I couldn't come up with anything. I did think of one thing. How many of you have married a really good kisser? Okay. it looked like it was going to come down to something flabbergasting. And the only thing that I could think of at that time was, when the time comes, if that car comes up this road, and if it turns into this area, there was a lot of ifs. There was just nothing but ifs. So I was going to have to create some kind of distraction. My pack was still in the car. When I got down from Bundy helping me out of the car, we went around the front of the vehicle, and he said, "Oh, I want to show you something down here." And I noticed a little trail going into the woods over there. And I went, I ain't going there, but I went there. And we were over there, and I was talking about, some of the places that I had seen that were tall and had spectacular views. And when I got there, there was like clouds all over the place. And I'm pretty gregarious, so to keep me chatting doesn't take a lot. So anyway, he goes, he picked up on the fact that I mentioned alcoholism way back when I was telling about turning my foot at the bar. He picked up on that. And it surprised the heck out of me, because I could have sworn that guy was not paying attention to what I was saying. But he picked up on that, and he said, I have a bottle of wine stashed down there, and I was going to have a picnic this afternoon. And I went, "You do?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "Wow, that's great." And I threw my arms around Ted Bundy, and I kissed his face off. And that's why this little talk is called Falling in Love with Bundy. I knew, however, that I wasn't going to fool him. That if I was going to kiss him, it better be real, or he would know. And so for those seconds that I was going to kiss him, I actually had to fall in love with Ted Bundy. And so I've never seen a more shocked expression on my face in my life than was on the face of Ted Bundy when I got done with that. It was very frightening, because I had to step into him. He wanted me to step away. He wanted me to be afraid. So I was doing everything backwards to him. And I had to step into him to do that. And I mean, I threw my arms around him, and I just smothered him. And with this kiss of someone who had loved him his whole life. He had just proposed to me. Just made myself feel what that would feel like. And I gave that kiss everything I had. I mean, everything I owned. And when I was finished, he steps back and he goes, "Wow, what? Why, you enjoy this?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, what's not to enjoy? I have a handsome man with a bottle of wine down here, and we're up on Mount Rainier. It's not the best day in the world, but here we are. And guess what? I've got a thing of cheese up in my backpack and some gourmet crackers that I bought at so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm gonna go get them. And he was so shocked. He was so shocked he couldn't move for those 10 steps. And I got my 10 steps. I got them. The other thing was that I was listening for the whole time was, of course, that motor. And it was still coming up the hill. And I thought, well, maybe I can make it out to there, you know, swing out my pack and get the heck out of here and make it out to the road and catch them. But I got my 10 steps, but he reacted right then, and the gig was up, the whole thing, you know. So he knew that I'd been playing him, and all the way up the hill, and so I'd spent all my bullets. My bullets were gone. So he comes running up, and I'm swinging my backpack out of the back of the truck, just in the middle of it. And that thing weighed a lot, because it had books in it, you know, from studying and philosophy and poetry and, you know, all the things that I was interested in reading while I was going along. And it wasn't an easy thing to do, to get that pack out. But the strap went flying out. As I grabbed it and started to pull it up, and the strap from the waist went out. And there he was. He caught it. He caught the strap in my backpack. Which at that point, you know, was like, you leave the backpack and you make a beeline for the road, try to catch the car, whatever it was. In they came. They came driving in there. So what they saw was a woman and a man struggling over the backpack, and everybody was talking about the man that was murdering women. And so what they saw was a tableau unfolding in front of them that showed a woman in trouble with a man at her heels grabbing her pack, trying to keep her from going anywhere. Well, of course, Bundy did not want to be identified. He dove behind his truck. The last thing that I saw of him that day was his cute little hiking boots hiding from me behind his truck so that he wouldn't get seen by anybody else. And I ran over to the car, and there's 2 kids about my age in there, and their car was just packed full of all kinds of stuff. You would not believe how much stuff was in this car. And the girl rolled down her window, and I said, "You have to get me into this car." And she said, "Yeah, we do, don't we?" And she hopped out and started helping me rearrange things to put my pack in. They got me in the back seat of that car somehow. And up the hill we went to the ranger station. I don't know if you guys know it, but rangers are cops. They're sworn in as policemen. So I went up there and I told my story to the Smoky Bear that was there, and then these same people were going to take me down the hill and then back over toward the Pacific Coast Highway where I had originally gone. And so I did that and headed over to the Pacific Coast Highway with these people. I had a heck of a rest of the day too. I mean, that story was unbelievable. I got in with Drunk Indian, and he's like, I met in a black Cadillac, and that I'd gotten rid of in Montana the year before was coming out of a liquor store with a case of beer. And I said, oh my God, that was my ex. I left him in Montana a year ago. And they go, do you want to get out? And I said, no. I definitely don't want to get out. Then I was on down the road and they had to make a pit stop. So I was coming out of the pit stop at a park, and in comes my ex, and he goes, I saw your walk from the highway, and drove over here. And I knew he had beer. So I got in with him. And I didn't know if I was going to make it down the Pacific Coast Highway. But anyway, this isn't part of Bundy's story. It's just part of the crazy ways some days that things happen. So all we had back then were pictures on the post office wall, drawings. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have any thing. We had newspapers. We had the post office wall. We had the nightly news. If it was something urgent, they might try to draw a picture or something. But for a long time, I had no idea who he was. But so I went on with my life, and by way of so I go on with my life, and I take up with the bartender at the bar where I found a job. And he decided he wanted to see Colorado. He was from Minnesota. So we went out to Colorado, and we didn't stay there long. And then we went down here, and then we went over here to Malibu, where I lived at the Malibu Shores Motel. I managed the Malibu Shores Motel. And it was right on the beach where the colony is, you know. It was a nice spot, but neither one of us were city people, even though Malibu's out of ways. Still looked like a city to me. And we eventually made our way back over here to Glenwood Springs, Colorado. It has the world's largest hot springs pool. And I'd been going there since I was a kid, and I thought that we could probably do okay for ourselves in Glenwood. And when I got there, I wrote a letter to the newspaper about a wet T-shirt contest that the city council was hosting. And I've always been a feminist. I was just born that way. You can't take it out of me. And there's something that really bothered me about the city council hosting a dang wet T-shirt contest. And so I got a group of gals together to go protest. Everybody was afraid to go but me. I went. And I met a man by the name of Nick there who worked at the radio station, and he covered my protest. And I called up to get some extra papers because I'd written just a blazing letter to the editor about what they were doing. And there was a group of women there who were already organizing to open a women's resource center in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which we did. And they wanted to talk to me real bad, and they came over and they hired me to work at the women's center. And I was one of two people. There was a director, and I was the lucky. I cussed every time I had to type something. I just I was not into that position at all, but I loved the work. And so I had a relationship with the people at the jail in Glenwood Springs, because I would go over there sometimes if a spouse of a battered woman was being held, try to hear his side of things, and if we could get him a apart, that was the best case scenario. If we could get them both help, that was the best case scenario. Not just for the women, but for the men as well. So I go over there one day, and Bundy had made his way down through California and Oregon, killing all the way, come across the top part of Nevada, into Utah, and he killed a woman right here in Garfield County. Guess where I work? Garfield County. He was in the Garfield County jail. So I had yet to see a picture of him, because this was just a few years later, just a couple of years later. And so I had yet to see a picture of him in person, or I mean, in any way. And so I asked the jailers when I was over there talking some business that I had there, if I could go in and walk around the jail cells. And the cells were interior. So you walked around the outside of the cells to see in. And when I looked in on him, he had his back to me, studying. He did all of his own law work, and he had it spread out all over the place in front of him. And I could see kind of a profile, and it jogged my memory, and I thought, well, I better get a better look. But I couldn't do it that night. But my friend who worked at the radio station was going to interview him on Monday, and had asked me to go with him to see if I could get a better look. So I'm noticing, as in the brief moment that I went by, I noticed that this guy was emaciated. And I mean emaciated. He looked like a dying biafran. He was so thin. And so I left that day, and thinking, oh well, I'll go in on Monday with Nick, and we'll see what we see. Well, that weekend he broke out of the Garfield County Jail by going through the vent in the ceiling. So that's what he had been trying to do with himself, is to get himself so emaciated that he could fit through the vent in the ceiling. And that's how he escaped. And he got out, and I never got to see him. And from there, as you know, you probably know where he ended up. He happily murdered his way across here, went down there, went around, ended up over here in Florida, where they finally caught up with him. And that is my story of my encounter with Ted Bundy. What did it teach me? It taught me something very important. Later on in my life, I would become a diving instructor, and I would also become a dive master. I could dive master ships. And if we just let go and let ourselves think, we are probably giving ourselves a chance to just believe in our power. I'm not saying that the women that didn't make it was some deficiency of their character that allowed them to get taken advantage of. That is not what I'm saying. The purpose of this talk is just to empower each and every person that hears this. When I guess that's not gonna work out, but fortunately, we got Bundy over here to Florida anyway. So, anyhow, that's what I'd like to say to the ladies here in the audience, and to the men who love us and take care of us and watch out for us. Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out, and listen to your gut, listen to your heart, and ask your inner resources for help. Say, I can't do this on my own. I'm going to need your help. If you call that person Father, if you call that person God, if you call that person Jesus, they will help you. And I bet that most of us are born with all of what we need to ever get us through. And that's what I would like you to take away from this today, is that you don't have to give up. Just keep trying, keep thinking, keep gaining, keep building your what do you call it? Your little army of weapons. We all have them. And the thing that I didn't have is a plan, for that, because who would? But I was uniquely, God uniquely built me to survive Bundy. And that's why I am here today, to tell this story finally, and to let some other people know they're not invulnerable. So I hope by listening to my little talk today that you feel more empowered, and start thinking about, what would I do if this happened? What would I do if that happened? Not be paranoid, because that's no way to live a life. And to be armed all the time would be a terrible thing. But we do have to arm ourselves with knowledge as much as we can, and what little we can. And so I hope you have enjoyed this afternoon, and that's it. Does anybody have a question?
I just was curious, when you met him in the beginning and you got into the truck, how did he introduce himself then?
Well, that's interesting. I think his name was, he introduced me as Stephen. It was a really innocuous name. That was one of the last pieces that came to me, was what he introduced himself as.
So nobody knew the name Ted Bundy at that time?
No, and it wasn't Ted. Although Ted is a fine name and would have brought me no red flags either. But, Stephen is very common. Everybody knows lots of nice guys named Stephen. I think it was Stephen, I think.
Did you find it ironic that you faked injuries like he did? Right?
Oh, I never thought about that until now.
Yeah.
Thank you. No.
That's interesting.
But he did,
Someone
you're right.
faked you.
He did fake
Yeah.
injuries. He often had his fake cast. And that's how I think he was pretending to be a patient in a parking lot when he got the girl in Garfield County, where I found him again at the jail. And so, anything else anybody would like to know? Yes?
Did you recognize him at the jail, or you said that you saw the back of him?
I saw the back, and I saw he had a very nice nose. I don't know if you have noticed, but Bundy had a nice nose. It was nice and straight. And I looked in and I could see that outline, and I could tell that it was a nice nose. And that's about all that I could tell. I never got a full frontal of him or at all at that moment or that time. That was scheduled for Monday morning, and he broke out of jail that weekend. So,
Did you see a picture of him right after that? Did they allow you to see a picture? So,
well, I still didn't know who it was. So, and I hadn't identified him in any way. And so, kind of just things went on. I had battered women to take care of. You know how it goes. We get busy with what we're doing, and somehow God can take us along until the moment when it's right for us to remember how things are. And then I knew that I should come forward.
So you didn't realize until you saw him on TV?
Oh, it was, well, he was executed, if I'm right, in 1988. So he was gone before we had any internet, you know, any big connections like that we have going on today. Our TV stations were run independently, most of them. There were larger networks, but you know, all you can do is talk about it. So that's all I heard. And when I finally did see a picture of him, I went, oh boy. No, this was the guy. The eyes were odd, let me tell you. They were odd. I've never looked at a pair of eyes like that. They were real weird. And I told some of you earlier, I was trying to make a poster for down here, something interesting. And I had my friend Zach run off 3 sets of Bundy eyes, and we made a heart out of masking tape. And I thought, okay, well, this has got some potential here. This is kind of coming together. And so I cut the eyes into 3 sections, and I put them across the thing. And I was out there for quite a while. It usually doesn't take me very long to see something and work with it. And I could not work those eyes. I had to take them home. I put them on my fireplace where I thought, well, maybe I can get a different idea on a way to do this. And I had to take them down. I had to take them out of I rolled up the thing and put it in the cabinet and put it away. I'm going to have to let another person design a flyer with that because I could not do it. It was too troubling. Go ahead.
This goes back, when you were in the truck with him, did he participate in the conversation?
Very. Very little.
Very little.
Very little. He didn't say much.
Was that probably was,
Well, I had to. The only thing that I had was that I was good at talking. That I'd been a lot of places. I could talk about Mount Kilimanjaro. I could talk about, you know, other places along my travels and stuff. And I just did. I just talked to him.
I think that was so smart.
It was, you know, it was a weapon.
Did he say along the way, because he told you you had to run an errand,
Yeah.
did he say when you started up the like, what kind of errand would you possibly have up here?
I did not ask him that question because I knew that the answer was he was going to murder me. So I asked, you know, as soon as I saw that we were going up Mount Rainier, I knew it. I knew. And that's when I just decided to, okay, you're gonna get a run for your money today, whoever you are. But, no, I didn't ask him even. I just went on about, oh, you know, I knew you were a forest ranger, you know, and this is an unmarked truck, and, you know, that's why it's so clean in here, you know, and did you just have this in the shop, and, you know, just whatever, you know, just whatever would float.
Did he say he was a forest ranger?
He let me think he was a forest ranger. He didn't say one way or the other, whether he did not deny or confirm that he was or not. I just let him think that I was an ingenue who was flabbergasted by the fact that, so impressed with the forest ranger, and so happy to be in the same truck, and I was excited about getting to where we were going, and I talked like a fool. And tried to think at the same time, so.
Did you notice a change in his expression when, because I guess I've read that, you know, he's the type of person that could have a calm, like, normal expression, and then when he went to attack somebody, that completely changed. Did you notice that?
I didn't, because he didn't get to that point.
Okay.
After I kissed him, he could hardly contain himself. He was absolutely ashen and astounded. I have never seen in my whole life a more surprised person in any situation. And when he stepped back from me and said, "Why, you like this, don't you?" You know, it was like, oh, well, sure, why not? I got the sun and the moon and the mountain and the stars, and I got a handsome man, and I got cheese. So,
Have you written any articles or books?
I am going to. This is the first I've ever shared this story. So you are witnessing a historical event here. I don't know if I'm gonna end up on Good Morning America. But the pseudonym that I am using is Jerica. And it just sort of popped out within the last couple of days. I decided on it. And because I had never heard that name. I may be the only Jerica anywhere, but it is my pseudonym. And so I was trying to get a thing in the paper in the area where I'm from, which is in Kansas. It isn't right around here in Dodge City. But I was trying to get an article in our local paper, and the Kansas Press Association said that it could not be printed in the paper without my name. And I went, I don't think that's right. And so yesterday I finally found a statute that protects victims. And and even though I grabbed and kissed him, he didn't grab and kiss me, I was kidnapped. So I am a victim of violent crime. And that entitles me to use a pseudonym and everything. Were you able to hear okay, dear?
Yes.
Were you? Okay, good. Are there any other questions?
I've got a weird question.
Okay.
What do you make of having seen him a whole second time and a whole second space, life?
I don't know. I mean, that's just so bizarre to me. Absolutely, completely bizarre. And, you know, people have said, well, how are we gonna tell this is real? You know, some of it I can prove, some of it was so long ago, maybe all the information is lost. Some of it I can come up with, and some of it I can't. I'm gonna be hunting for it, obviously. I'm going to write a book. And I do have experience writing. It's one of my hidden talents. But you know, they've said, well, how do we know that this is true? How do we know that you didn't just make this whole thing up? And my answer would be, if you want me to, I will take and be happy to take a lie detector test. Sodium pentothal, maybe not, but a simple lie detector test would certainly be in the realm. And I would understand if people would need that, if they would think about this story. But some of it is corroborable, and some of it is not yet. But I will be working on trying to get as many facts as I can to be able to support what happened to me that day.
When he was in jail in Garfield County, did they have his real name? Do you know? Or
Yeah,
do you
they
remember?
did.
Okay,
Yeah, they had him by then.
okay.
And, you know, he was getting a lot of the murders pinned on him. So, and, murdered several people, several women in Colorado too. But just happened to turn up in the Garfield County Jail. Life is weird. Life is really weird.
I'm curious just about you, in your past, you've mentioned so many things that you've done and been. What all have you mentioned, the dive master and the music, and what all have you?
Well,
Haven't you done?
Right.
when I was a little girl, do you remember that show on TV? It was called Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges. Anybody? Yeah?
Yeah.
Some of you do. Okay. I saw that as a little girl. And I instantly knew I was gonna go do that. And I grew up in Colorado. I didn't grow up around the sea or the ocean or anything. But from the time I saw that, and I was little, you know, I was like 4 or 5. My parents were going on a camping trip to kill deers. And we just gotten a TV set, and Lloyd Bridges was my new best friend. So I knew I was gonna do that. And then at a very young age, I started playing the piano and took lessons for a long time. I've been an entertainer, and I've been a diving instructor. That was not easy. That was not easy to do. I did that in the 80s, and there were very few women in it. And after that, I owned my own recording studios and went on to sell timeshare. And you know, just had a bunch of adventures in life.
Ran a hotel in California.
Yeah, I ran into that guy too, the guy that owned the hotel at the Aspen Food and Wine Festival one year. His name was Jean Leone, and he owned La Scala Malibu and La Scala Restaurant in Beverly Hills. And I said, you probably don't know me, you probably don't recognize me because I looked real different. And I said, I'm the woman that backed you into a corner one day and told you exactly what I thought of you, and quit on the spot. He goes, oh! And I said, how is George? How's George Samamas, his right-hand man? And his right-hand man was killed a few years before. And, but he was so struck that I asked about George and told him that how much I thought of George and everything, that he gave me a big case of wine. He owned a winery in Spain. And, you know, so I just, you know, if you're out and about, you know,
Do you still advocate for women?
am I still
Do you
what?
still advocate for women? Do you work with the women's?
I haven't worked specifically with women for a long time. This, however, today begins a new journey doing that.
Were you in more than one protest?
I wrote the pro-choice anthem. And I led a 250,000 person march. I was in the front line at the state capitol in Phoenix. And I produced it in my recording studio. So yes, I will always do that. And you know, discrimination is not a thing of the past. You guys all know that, don't you? Yeah, you do. And as women, we're taught to be passive and just lay down and wait for it. And well, no, excuse me, no, that ain't gonna be happening. If it didn't happen to me, and that I could make a difference in the trajectory of my own being, then yes, I want women to know that they don't have to act scared and run away, that if they just think a little while longer, something will come in for them. Because God put us here for a purpose, and we have to advocate for that purpose, even if it's just to go out and enjoy ourselves, you know, not do anything or become the Pope. So if we want our lives to have meaning, we give it the meaning.